Two, one. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Delusions of Grandeur. I am your host, David Streggy, and here in the room with me I have once again Boris.
Hi.
And also in the room, I have my lovely fiance, Tammy.
Hello.
So
Hello.
how are all of you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad, but I feel like we should tell the folks out there what film we are going to be going on and discussing. Tammy, you just so happen to have the film next to you. Why don't you show them? Pull it back a little
Ooh.
bit, and it says on there that it is the title Fallen, which is a film that was filmed in 1988. You can set it down now. And the film is directed by Gregory Hoblit. It's written by Nicholas Kazan, but it stars Denzel Washington, John Goodman, Donald Sutherland, among others. But let's see what IMDb says about the film, and then we'll go into our first impressions of the film.
Oh
Homicide detective John Hobbs witnesses the execution of a serial killer, Edgar Reese. Soon after the execution, the killings start again, and they are very similar to Reese's style. So, first impressions. Let's go with you, Boris. What did you think of this film? And was
Well,
this a first time watch for you?
yes, today was my first time watching the movie, and it was really good. I was actually regarding how long the movie is. I was surprised how quickly it got to the point and got really exciting, and I really loved the twist with the narrator at the very end, but we will get into that. So yeah, the movie was really good. I enjoyed it. How about you?
Me, I think the first time that I had heard about it is from, believe it or not, my fiance. She, we were talking about films. I don't know what it was, and then she suddenly was like, "Have you ever seen this film?" I was like, "No." So I think she picked it up first, and then eventually I found a copy, but she was the one who introduced me to it first, and I thought it was trippy. I thought it was definitely, and I think I've only seen it once since then, which was so this would probably be my like second time viewing it, but it was intense for its time period, um, and being as it follows our serial killerishness that we've been covering, I thought it would be a great addition to the films that we've already discussed.
Yeah, uh, good combination of serial killers and demons and stuff.
Which kind of goes with those devilish stuff that we were talking about too.
Oh yeah.
So, Tammy, when did you? Was this a first time watch for you?
No, I don't remember when I watched it the first time, but it was quite a while ago. I think something that got me to watch it was, I think how I brought it up to you is I like Denzel as an actor, and I think
Hmm.
we were discussing black actors and the movies that we liked, and how certain ones are like stand out, like Denzel stands out, you know, and I
Hmm.
think that's how I ended up bringing it up to you. But at the time, I didn't have it, and I remember when we went to the video store, I was just telling the guy about it, And he goes, "Oh yeah," and I'm like, "Yeah," because I didn't have it. So, um, what I liked about it is the whole makes you keeps you guessing, kind of. It's like, okay, well, who's gonna do this, or who's gonna feel like this, who's gonna get touched next, and what's gonna happen, and then you start
Oh,
seeing the things unfolding, and then when it's I think it keeps you interested because you don't know what's gonna happen next, and you're kind of waiting to see.
oh, definitely.
I think that's one of the best things about it is it doesn't give you a chance to be bored, and you really do have to pay attention. Like I told David a few times when we were watching it, I said, watch this or pay attention to this. It's one of those you really need to watch what's all going on to get everything. So
Well, indeed. Although I have to say, I'm not sure. Maybe it was IMDb. Let me check. Where I actually read that it would have to do with a certain demonic entity who we are going to mention, but yeah, somehow I knew it would be a demonic entity involved, and that kind of helped me not get too confused throughout the first part of the movie.
Well, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. The storyline on the IMDb page. If you scroll down a bit, it mentions it. So yeah, that made it easier.
Well, this is what IMDb also continues to say in the storyline, which is a little less vague than the what they describe the film as. So, Detective John Hobbs is convinced that when serial killer Edgar Reese is executed, all of his troubles are over. But when people he knows and people on the street start to sing the same tune that Reese sang in the gas chamber, and those same people taunt him, he is told that maybe the cursed fallen angel Azazel is behind it all. Azazel is cursed to roam the earth without a form, and he can switch bodies by any contact, making him hard to track. When Hobbs is forced to kill a man possessed by Azazel, he must clear his name while protecting his family and others from the evil, vengeful Azazel.
Oh,
Um,
indeed.
but in the very beginning, this is like the part that you kind of have to pay attention to. Like that's what Tammy was saying. That there are parts that you need to pay attention to, and in the very beginning, we meet Detective Hobbs. He is going to see an inmate that he has put away that has been on death row, by the name of Reese, and it's what he says to him while he's incarcerated, right before the moments he goes up into the gas chamber, which at the time the gas chamber was um, a a form of death that prisons used at the time. I don't think they use that anymore. Uh,
Hmm, I don't know.
I think they
I,
use
I think they only use lethal now
lethal
because
injection of that
they
mercury or
think that
whatever.
they think that's more humane.
They think
I
it's more humane to use lethal injection these days. And
personally, I
but
think if you're in there because you killed somebody, I don't want to be humane to you. you weren't you weren't humane, so why should I be? But I'm not the
I
gun.
yeah, that's the thing when it comes to that's one thing that I think I was touching on last time with Boris, and I know he has different thoughts on like the death penalty or whatnot, but if you're in there doing something wrong, I as well believe that then your rights are no longer yours. You know, if you're in there because a jury said, "Hey, we want you to die," you know, and a judge, you know, made the decision that you know you are going to be dead, or whatnot. You don't get any more rights than a piece of dirt.
Uh, well, generally, I would maybe even agree, but the main reason why I have different thoughts on the matter is because even those people who maybe do deserve that kind of punishment, even they have a family who did nothing wrong, and that family are the ones who are going to be left suffering after that person is executed, and that person will just be dead. They won't be suffering anymore. They won't be feeling any sort of consequences of their actions anymore. The only ones who will actually get hurt will be their family, who are innocent. So that's why I have different thoughts about that.
So
I understand
what?
what you're saying, but I think that if things were back how they were a long time ago, you know, the punishments were harsher and everything, our prisons wouldn't be so full, and we wouldn't have so much because people would think twice. You know, nowadays, oh, if I kill somebody, if that, then I'll probably get out. It's I get sentenced to 25 to life. Okay, after 25 years, I can get out. Sometimes even earlier than that. So they don't even think twice about some of the stuff they do because, oh, okay, it's only a couple of years. Oh, that's only that. You know, there's nothing to discourage them. You know, and our prison systems are just so full because they don't. You know, there's nothing to deter them, nothing to discourage them if things are back. I understand what you're saying about the families, but they evidently didn't care about their family when they went and did what they did. So
Yeah, I see what you mean.
But in any case, what do y'all think about the prisoner that we are shown in the very beginning of this film, Reese? I know it was a very
whack
short,
job.
brief. It definitely seemed like a freak to me.
Well, yeah, maybe he did seem like a freak at that point, but later on, when you find out what is really going on, then you kind of realize I mean, okay, spoiler alert. Everyone who is watching us, you already know that we are going to spoil this movie, but yeah, I can't really say this without revealing it. Later on, you realize that this man was possessed by a demon, by this Azazel, during the execution, and he was very likely possessed at the time when he committed his crimes as well, which technically means the real man was innocent and got executed for something done by a demon possessing his body. So,
Well, at least that's what we are led to believe. We didn't see exactly what this killer did before he was gassed, and actually that gassing that's when we see the man gassed, um, that to me was a shocking thing to see on You don't normally see someone being cooked from the outside, you know. Um, at least as far as that is concerned, I'm not sure how many times that we've actually seen the imagery of someone being put to death
Shawshank.
while on death row. Well, Shawshank. No, you're talking about Green Mile.
Yeah, Green Mile.
Oh yeah.
The movie Green Mile showed
the
that.
grisliest ones too, as
I
far as
think
being put to death.
there's another one that reminded me of this one, and that was Shocker. Wes Craven's Shocker. That was one where the man was put to death, and then suddenly he was haunting like people through televisions and things of that nature. So I think that there were quite a few movies that came out around this time that kind of followed similar things.
Haunted.
The electric chair instead of
Uh,
the gas, though. Most
you
horror movies tend
say
to go with that.
you say haunted through television. Can you please repeat what that movie was called?
Shocker.
Oh, that sounds interesting. Reminds me a bit of another horror movie that I'm a huge fan of.
Well, we can definitely cover that film next week if we wanted to.
Possibly.
But
Although I do hope we eventually get back to the Omen remake and those other devil-related movies we were going to discuss.
we will. But I figured us. I figured we'd follow where the films led us, and because this film is similar to that one in some ways, I just figured that would possibly be a good one to talk about. So,
possibly.
But let's get back to this one.
Yeah. Sorry.
So we meet Denzel Washington's character. What do you all think about Denzel Washington's character as Hobbs?
I thought he was pretty good, actually.
What about you, Tammy? What do you think about Hobbs as a character?
Tammy, can you still hear
Tammy,
us?
What do you think about Hobbs as a character?
Yeah. I think he was very very by the book, but he was also very very aware of everything. He looked you know, he didn't just look straight ahead at things. He took the whole picture. He looked at everything. He was very, very precise and very detail oriented about everything and very by the book as an officer, you know, and there, you know, no nonsense, you know.
Okay. What about you, Boris? What did you think about Hobbs as a character?
I actually liked him pretty much. I mean, based on what I hear about real cops these days who are supposed to stand for justice, but very often they abuse their power and stuff. And this one, we actually saw him really care to do justice, which is very respectable. And I liked how determined he was to get to the bottom of things and make things right. So he was pretty cool.
What would you call an official like a policeman in your country?
Uh, you mean the Croatian word for
Sure.
uh, policajac?
Okay.
Uh,
And as far as you know, do they follow procedure in certain things when it comes to murder and things of that nature?
well, to be honest, I can't say I really know much about that because fortunately no one in my surroundings has gotten murdered. So I don't really know what they do in those cases. Maybe when it comes to murder, they do what they can, but I know there are many situations when they don't do much to prevent bad things from happening before they happen. Like when someone is doing bad things, and it seems very likely that they might do something even worse, but they haven't done it yet. The police won't really look much into the case, and they won't do much to prevent something serious from happening, even when it gets very obvious that something probably will happen, and that's a problem. And of course, when there are some crimes that aren't as severe as murder, they often won't do anything, won't do much investigation unless you come to them with solid evidence. This man did this to me, then maybe they will do something, but they are supposed to investigate it on their own. Nah.
Well, I know different.
Do they have the different
Uh,
like ranks and stuff in Croatia? Like you got the detectives, and you got the regular officers, and you got the lieutenants, and do you have all that there, or are they just police?
Uh, Good question. I must admit, I haven't really been doing much research on that, and I don't really know anyone who works at the police myself, so I'm not really familiar with details about those things. I'm sorry.
Well,
that's
I'm
okay.
just curious because in other movies and TV shows and stuff, you've got like I watch Law and Order, and they've got detectives, and they got detectives that only work with like the SVU, the Special Victims Unit, and then they got ones that just work with organized crime, and they got do
Interpol.
I was just wondering, do they departmentalize like we do here, or is it just the police? That's just curious.
Mm, yeah, I understand. I'm sorry for. I
Not a
mean,
problem. I,
shame on me. It's my country. I should have more knowledge on this. But yeah, police work is something I've never done much research on. So I'm sorry for not being able to help
not a
more.
problem. Not a problem.
One little thing I
Mm,
wanted to put in is we had all said about how Denzel, how his character, um, seemed to care about his work and wanting to get to the bottom of everything and get the situation,
yes.
and how not all officers work that way. They don't all work that way in any field because I was a correctional officer, and there was plenty of them that did not seem to care about the inmates that we had to watch over or to take care of the daily things. So it's nice to see an officer that actually cared about what he was doing.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I may not be too familiar with police work, but I do often hear news about a cop doing this, doing that, doing bad things. So, yeah, that was why I said what I said.
And me having
Well,
been in corrections and seeing how officers can be like that they cannot care about what they're doing or not do the right thing. That was actually in corrections, that was actually a very big thing too. You hear it on the TV all the time about officers that don't do what they were supposed to. Then you hear about the good ones too, but it you know it goes all the way across the board, not just with your regular officers. You know,
Well, yeah, in a sense, you were somewhat of a police officer in the House of Corrections, uh, and they had their own rules about certain things. So, but how were how was the treatment towards the prisoners in the House of Corrections?
how was it supposed to be, or how was it?
Both, both.
Well, when I started, and then they put on the whole big thing and everything, and you know, we don't know why they're in there. And when they're in the House of Corrections, they're really not supposed to be like killers or this or that. They're in the House of Corrections, But we were told to treat them like how would you want your mom or your dad or your brother or sister to be treated in there? Treat them as people. Now I went with that philosophy, but a lot of other officers didn't, and it was sad because the ones that that didn't treat them like people, they were the ones that had fights all the time in their dorms. They had this and they had all the nasty things going on. And you know what? Whenever they wanted something, they got it. You know, the officers that were doing what we were supposed to see, the inmates in there, the biggest thing that they wanted was respect. You walk into a dorm, you have 50 to 70 inmates in there. They can walk up and touch you. They're not behind any bars or anything. This is a dorm setting. Unless they're naughty, and then they do go to the lockup. Okay. Now, you're there with them. Now, if you sit there and you walk in with this chip on your shoulder and you sit there and you treat them like crap, what do you think you're going to get in response? I walked in and I knew what they wanted. I told them right off the bat, because you're supposed to do a speech as you come in on your shift. And I told them right up, if you treat me with respect, I'll treat you with respect. And did my whole little thing. And after a while, there was inmates that I had been in their dorms, and if I had somebody that acted up or whatever, they would stick up for me, and they would tell the other inmates, "Knock it off. This CO is cool." But that that's just to show how things went, though. The officers that did not treat them nicely, they have problems all the time, but yet it seemed like the inmates could write grievances. There was officers that I swear every single day in roll call, I mean every day, had grievances, and it acted like it was okay. In 3 years, I had three grievances. You know,
Mm-hmm.
but the ones that had all these grievances and everything, they seem to be, oh yeah, we'll give them whatever they want. Hey, you want the day off? Okay, you want this. It seemed like they catered to them. And it was like, why? They're doing exactly the opposite of what you wanted us to do.
The only
So,
reason why I asked you about that is because you don't, in these types of films, you don't normally hear the other side of things when it comes to the imprisonment of prisoners. Now, House of Corrections was m- not for like death row inmates or anything like that, but it's a place where they put people who've done things that are wrong. And Tammy worked for 3 years at that place. Tell them what they did to get rid of her.
What?
well, have you're supposed to be at 100% in your dorm, because if you're not at 100%, your safety, the inmate safety, and any other officers that would come to assist in a situation, their safety is put at risk. I came into work the one night, and they had a grounds crew of the inmates doing stuff outside because it was winter, and they had missed an area where we were all walking, and I didn't know it was black ice that I felt, and I hit my hand, and it started to swell up right away. And before roll call, I told my lieutenant, and he still put me in my dorm and put me in my dorm with an ice pack on my hand, which means all the inmates can see that there's something wrong with me. So now, if I would have had to call for a fight or something else in my dorm, these inmates all know there's something wrong with me. I'm not at 100%. So I have a logbook. We all had logbooks to write stuff. I wrote the lieutenant up, and I wrote my sergeant up in my logbook, and also on the incident report that they made me go to work because I was not 100%. So um, I had had a medical issue come up, and they told me that I wasn't allowed that time off because I had not worked this many hours, and it's like, but I did not work that many hours because I was out from the injury. So they tried to say that I was out of work, um, that it wasn't approved. And I fought with the union. The union fought for me, and I went to go to a private attorney, and the private attorney said, "That's the county. They make their own rules. You got about a 50-50 chance of winning this." So, needless to say, I got let go because I don't have the money to fight this, and if they're going to make up their own rules. But it was all because the lieutenant got in trouble. The lieutenant got demoted. So, of course, they had to get rid of me.
Yeah.
The only reason why I asked you to talk about that is like I said, the whole how prisoners are treated. There are things behind the scenes. So thank you for sharing that with us. I know you didn't get anywhere on that, but let us get back to the film at hand. So,
one thing I wanted to say is, I'm glad you brought it up because there is so much behind the scenes that people don't know between the inmates and also in the structure of the police force itself and how they treat their fellow officers. You know, that people don't see and hear that stuff, and it's like, yeah, okay, it does exist. They don't always treat their fellow officers good either.
Nope. But Hobbs believes that he is seeing this Reese finally get his comeuppance in the gas chamber. But there is something that happens before he goes into the gas chamber that you have to pay attention to. And he ends up touching one of the officers that is strapping him into the chair in order for him to get gassed. And it's that officer that you see later pull up in plain clothes in a car, and you start to see a passing of people, a passing of touch to people, which ultimately gets to our first creepy victim.
Also, he did touch Denzel when he was still in lockup, but when you get further in the movie, you'll understand why him touching Hobbs did not work. And that's why he ended up touching the other officer, because you'll see later in the movie why when he touched Hobbs it didn't work. And that's kind of what spirals this out of control in a way, because he is hell bent on getting Hobbs, and he's got to try this entity's got to try every single way, because just touching Hobbs doesn't work.
Actually, now that you say that, I didn't end up figuring out why it didn't work.
Why do you think is the reason why it didn't work?
Uh, well, regarding what happened near the end, I really have no idea. uh,
I believe it
Well,
didn't work because his ideals of life and his the way he lived his life and everything was too strong, and so Azazel, how do you say it again?
Azazel.
Azazel.
Azazel couldn't penetrate that, and so that's the same way as he couldn't penetrate the Milano years earlier. So he had to resort to what he ends up, how we see everything at the end.
One thing I
Huh.
wanted to mention is that Hobbs, as a detective, he has a personal life as well, and he seems to room with his brother and his nephew, which I believe not too recently the brother's wife left him.
Yes.
And I wanted to say something about this backstory because eventually that comes up as part of some of the details later on. Because you get the sense that this brother actually is kind of a special needs person, someone who may have some disabilities or something like that, maybe a little slow, and
Like need to be watched over, guided a little bit, you know.
correct. Whether
Oh,
or not this was because of the breakup of his wife or whatnot, we don't know. But regardless, it put his life on a stand hold, and I believe that Hobbs took it upon himself to move in with him and help him through this process while this stuff was going on. So whether or not
ooh.
he was living with him from the get go, I don't know. But I get the feeling that he ended up having to move in with him and his nephew to help support him because everything just went to shit, at least in his brother's life, you know. So he's helping them get back to a sense of normality by helping invent a structure for their life. But then he thought that this Reese dude, it was going to be the end of it once he died. He was there at the gassing. And he saw it all over the news. He even mentioned that it was on 4 different channels, you know. And it was very well publicized that this bad guy had been killed, and
And it was also publicized that Hobbs was behind it, that he was the one that captured, that brought him in and everything. So he was portrayed on all 4 channels too, as he was like the hero.
yep.
Yeah.
So ultimately, like I said, that led up to, and the thing that makes this movie unique is the fact that right before Reese gets gassed, he begins to sing a song. What song is that, Tammy?
Oh, come on, let Boris answer.
Well, what song is that? Do you know what song that is?
Time is on my side by the Rolling Stones.
Honestly, it's got the words in the title, but the title is, Tammy, isn't it
I
"Sympathy
don't know
for
the
the Devil"?
actual title.
Uh,
I know the
oh,
song.
that's the one.
No, that's a
Oh,
different one. That's what they were playing.
Okay, that's what they were
That's the one they
playing
were playing at
at
the
the
end.
end. So "Time Is on My Side" is the actual
Oh,
title of the song.
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just googled.
And Did you say? Did you say before we even got on, Tammy, that this song? This is the third time you've heard this song in a movie.
Sympathy for the Devil, yes, because it's on Interview with the Vampire, and I
Okay.
also believe it's on Lost Boys.
Okay. And I also thought that it was on the Devil, the
Devil's
Devil's
Advocate.
Advocate.
It might have been on that one too, but that's not the main song of this movie. The other one, "The Time on My Side," is. But it just is kind of unique that at the end they were playing the Sympathy for the Devil.
Yeah.
Because that's the Stones also.
So would you say that this movie is it kind of works well with the music well we'll get to that. So Time is on Your Side is basically sung by every single person who actually gets touched by this entity that which we'll get to that because there's a certain detective work that kind of goes into finding out that Azazel is behind all of this.
I think the song "Time on My Side" is what other people relate to as remembering this movie. If you say, "I'm looking for this movie," or "Have you seen this movie?" They play "Time on Your Side" throughout it. That's how I think a lot of people relate to knowing this movie, is because of that song is throughout it. It kind of clicks. Oh yeah, I know that movie.
Quite possibly.
But ultimately, like I said before, um, there is a killer that appears to be on the loose, and the first one gets to be this one guy. He looks like really freaky looking, to be honest. If I remember correctly, his name was Gary.
I think so.
But what does he do? What I know that you see a passing of people, and he ends up going up to a dude with a sandwich or a sub, and then the next moment you see him like having killed someone. And he was just in an odd position in a bathtub.
Uh, oh yeah, I think it was like while he had this dead guy in the bathtub, he was having a breakfast, and later on they found cornflakes and stuff that he was eating, and at the same time there's the dead body. So that was kind of bizarre for the investigators.
Well, yeah, because and one thing you got to notice is that John Goodman is um, his detective partner. And I like John Goodman as an actor too. I think that he is a very relatable person. I like that I like that he's not a well like muscle dude. He's like an overweight dude, you know. Um, uh,
Yeah.
but I remember him from films like The Flintstones. I remember him on the show Roseanne. Um, and I just get a kick out of him every time that I see him. I think he is a good actor, just like you think Denzel is. You know, and I think you would agree with me, Tammy. Correct?
Oh yeah, I get a kick out of him. He's always been one of the ones I like.
Well, yeah, I remember a line that he said in here while they were somewhat unraveling some of the biblical crap in here. I think the quote says something like, "You're all shades of fucked up" in the Bible, or something like that. I don't know exactly what he said there.
Oh, he was.
Yeah, he said something like that, but I don't think that's really in the Bible.
He was saying, that guy that translated what Reese was saying that was in that biblical language. Part of he was re-saying part of what the guy translated, and then he said, "Now I need a translator to translate what this is supposed to mean." After he said it.
Okay. What I do want to say is that this film did win 3 awards. It won the Bram Stoker Award for the best screenplay of 1998. It was a nominee for the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards in 1999, and it was the best movie at the International Horror Guild of 1999. So, going forwards in this, at this point in time, once they found the first victim of this killer that seems to be going around, it seems to imitate the exact ways in which Reese had in fact murdered his victims through it. In fact, they thought that they might have a copycat killer on the loose.
Don't forget that he was leaving, that they left a message, and Hobbs found the message.
Yes. What was that message? To be honest, wasn't it? Why is there a space between lions
and Spakowski? I believe it was.
I think so, yeah.
And Reese had said that to Hobbs. He had actually said that to him. So when they found that at the first crime scene, where it said it had lions and then it had question marks, and then it had Spakowski below.
Yes.
Not to mention that he was speaking some. Well, at first, Hobbs had thought that it was gibberish, but they had a linguist come in. And he basically said that it was an Aramaic language that was 3,000 years old or something like that.
Yeah.
What did y'all think about that? Once y'all heard that?
Well, I knew about that language existing. It's mentioned in the Bible, so I don't know. I guess since it's movie about a demon and stuff like that, biblical stuff is not too unexpected to appear.
Oh yeah, but ultimately, there is a reason why the Reese had said, "Why is there a space between these names?" And it turns out that there was an officer that was went by the name of Richard Milano, and supposedly he was this decorated officer that went up into the mountains and basically killed himself. Okay, offed himself. Whatever you want to, and there was a billboard of names that wasn't quite on the wall. It was like hidden behind some chairs, like they had forgotten it. It used to be on the wall. That the name had been the name of Richard Milano had been stricken from that list of names.
And they were in between lions and Spakowski.
Correct. So he investigated. Hobbs did. Why Richard may have done what he did, and I think the first thing he did is he went up to the mountain cabin that he was found in, and I guess well, not only that, but there had been some other messages. Like there was a message at the first victims thing saying to look behind the mirror.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
and that's how they found
The what?
and that's how he found the lions and the question marks and Spakowski because they looked
Ah.
behind the
Oh
mirror.
yeah. Yeah. That was it.
Yeah, and then somehow he was able to go to the basement, and then he got a message there to um um to and he found some books that had to do with like maybe what the detective was looking at the time, and then I think the first thing he did before he went up to the cabin was he actually tracked down the relative, the daughter of um, Richard Milano, and he asked her about what happened, and she didn't really give him much. In fact, she offered him coffee and the chance to hear a little bit, but only enough to maybe just make him think, huh, so she's hiding something, you
Plus,
know.
her whole house, he took notice that there was angels everywhere in her house, and she, she said that she taught in the school about about that kind of stuff, and then she, really believed in angels and God.
And her name was Greta Milano. She was played by Beth Davids, which I actually recognized her from another movie, um, Bicentennial Man, where she played uh, the grown up daughter of um, and the granddaughter of a family member of a robot that was in a family that went through years of being in servitude to a certain family. Um, did you recognize her from there too, or Tammy? Or
Sort of.
I recognized her from that movie. Have you seen Bicentennial Man? It's kind of a sad movie towards the end, but it was a good one.
I think I haven't seen it. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
If you like
Um,
Robin Williams as an actor, it is a very good movie.
Ooh.
so um, ultimately, he finds out that Richard Milano was actually um, in charge of an investigation very similar to his that he has going on right now, and um, basically he finds out that he was investigating um, angels, demons, and stories and legends that have to do with what God did with the rest of His angels that like didn't follow His godly ways, and rebelled against Him, and these
Ultimately,
were yeah.
ultimately, he's up. He went there because they he was getting investigated and he was getting blamed for stuff, and they were looking at him as being the bad guy.
Well,
And he went
yeah.
up there to clear his name. And when he went up there to clear his name, is when he found all this other stuff.
Well, yeah. Remember the coin that he was flipping in his hand?
Yes.
That coin ended up being at one of the next victims' crime scenes, and it had his prints on it. Somehow that coin ended up there, and he doesn't know how, and that's why they started investigating him. But the sad thing is that he saw his nephew go to sleep one night and put his brother to bed, and then the next morning he woke up and his brother had been killed by this entity. And then he noticed that his brother had these Aramaic letters, and not only that these Aramaic letters have been found on the victims before that, and there was a number in Aramaic on his nephew's chest too. So after that, he took his nephew to Miss Milano's place to have her protect him, because she's in a protected area, supposedly. And he went off to face this entity on his own. What did y'all think about all this? The fact that he was in a spot where he had to literally do everything to protect his own family, and face this thing, and the fact that he couldn't even tell his best friend, his detective friend, everything, you know.
Oh, well, it was definitely very brave of him that he decided to resolve things the way he did. Like, he immediately knew, since it was said that in order to kill a demon, the demon would have to find itself in the air without any other host to get into within. How long distance was it? I forgot. So,
You're talking about the cabin in the woods or whatever.
Yeah. So he knew that in order to get somewhere with the demon and then kill the demon, but at the same time prevent it to get into someone else, he would have to kill himself as well. And as far as we saw, he seemed to have made that decision very easily without hesitating about doing it. So it was definitely very brave on his part.
I do like how the fact that the film is narrated by Denzel in between hand to make it feel like an old 1950s ish, like noir mystery. That's how they used to do things in mystery films from the 1930s and 40s. They had someone narrate something like it was a case,
Yeah.
and that's how he was narrating it, like it was like a journal, like it was like a diary, like it was something that he had written down. And that's why I think when it comes to when he's up in the cabin, when he starts to say yeah, I thought that I had gotten him where I wanted to, but so did he, you know.
Yeah, the twist they did with the narration was very good. I really loved that part.
And I like how the fact that it was kind of like a surprise ending. You didn't expect it.
I thought the first time I watched it, I definitely thought it was his lieutenant or whatever that was the one that was behind everything. And it ends up being his partner, That was, when I saw it the first time and you see it, it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's not him.
What do you
It's
think
him.
of Donald Sutherland as an actor, by the way? He he's kind of like a background character. He's there, but he's not. Like he's their lieutenant. He's the one that tells them about lets them know that they have to arrive at certain places. He's the one that they have to answer to when it comes to closing a case. And they really thought that they had. But what do you think about him as a character here?
Uh, I must admit I didn't really like him very much because I generally dislike people who are so dismissive. When you ask them something, they won't answer and they try to discourage you from getting further into the matter. When someone gets like that with me, it actually just infuriates me and makes me even more hellbent on finding out more. So I really hate that kind of people.
I
Well,
didn't like
he's
his character that much either because that's what makes you think that he's hiding something, and that you know because of how he was like that invasive, and he didn't, just if you're going to investigate this, keep what you find to yourself, things like that. He said, so I really did not like his character, and then like as it went on, and Hobbs is getting investigated and getting blamed, you know, he didn't. He should have stuck up for him instead of making it sound like well, you know, he was making him look guilty, and it's like this is just a superior officer. You're supposed to stand up for your officers, not sit here and make them look guilty.
well, and I didn't realize the character that was playing Lou, which is this third guy that apparently they're kind of like the three that go hang out and like kick back after closing a case and having a couple of beers or whatnot. Lou gets kind of creepy in a moment too, and that he's played by James Gandolfini, who ultimately went into at, probably right after this into the series The Sopranos as Tony Soprano in that a series that had to do with the mob. And I didn't recognize him. I had to look it up on IMDb. But James Gandolfini, in order to play that whole time on my side off really well, I thought that was great. A great little moment where all of a sudden he was like grilling him about what he might have found up at the cabin. And then all of a sudden he sung "Time Is on My Side," and then he touched other people, and then it ended up being going through the man of color. It was a security officer or something like that, and then it went to an old man and old woman, and then when they turned around, what they said was kind of spooky too, you know.
Well,
Yeah.
Hobbs was repeating that thing that reset to that old lady, to that couple, and then that old lady turned around and like you know told told him like all this stuff, but he's just looking at her like, how do you know this? How do you know that? And she was basically warning him, you know, and then they turned around and then
Didn't she say? Didn't wasn't he warned that beware my wrath during
yes,
that whole scenario?
yeah,
Because it passed to several people before the entity said, beware my wrath. You know too much, or some shit like that.
and then Hobbs got just stood there and watched it go from person to person to person to person. There was nothing he could do
Mm-hmm.
but stand there
The same thing happened to Miss Milano. Um, it's because the entity saw him, interact with her. It chased her, and it chased her to a certain point where she almost didn't escape it. I mean, when that dude that just ended up like punching through that taxi.
Indeed.
And then how can you escape something that just travels just by someone touching someone? You know,
I thought that was a very interesting scene though, because it showed this person and this person and following all the way up to her like that. I thought that was really neat how that was done, and it showed just how quickly this thing can pass. So I thought that they did a good job with that scene. I thought it really, it showed you.
well, yeah,
Definitely.
that was those were some definitely cool scenes where it showed you that it could possess you in an instant. Um, and yeah, but ultimately we get to that end situation, and we don't know it's the lieutenant. The 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 lieutenant, his detective friend. I th- I thought the way that um, John Goodman pulled it off was pretty impressive too. I mean, he's got kind of a rock and roll kind of a voice, so because his band did the music for Roseanne's, and he actually it was in a band outside of this all too. So to me, when he sang it in his gruff sounding voice, it just pulled it off really good.
Mhm.
And the whole moment when you realize that he's shot him and he's dying, and he's poisoned himself through that cigarette,
Oof.
and he's like, why do you think I brought you up here? Why do you why do you think I poisoned myself? We're both dying at the same time. You're not going to escape this shit, buddy. So he really thought that he got him. He did not expect that there was going to be something that was going to be nearby for him to escape to.
Oh yeah, that was like I said, a really great plot twist. Throughout the story, you have this narrator who you assume is Denzel Washington's character Hobbs. So throughout the whole movie, you think he's going to come out of it alive, but then there is the twist when you find out the whole story actually wasn't narrated by Hobbs, but by Azazel, and that's the great plot twist when you realize that at the end, when he apparently died, he actually possessed the cat that happened to pass by, and that was how he managed to get back to the civilization and continue with his stuff.
Oh, so that's what's wrong with Sassy,
You noticed a goof with Denzel Washington, something where he was wearing a brown jacket in one um, a moment, and a lighter brown jacket in another scene. When was that, Tammy?
Ooh.
eh? I think that's when he was being when he went to when he knew he was being followed and he was at his car
Oh
And when he
yeah.
went to the car, he had like the lighter jacket on. He put the stuff down on the car. The next scene, he's got a dark jacket on, and he's chasing after the person he thinks is following him.
Oh yeah. That was another thing. When he'd been told to just go home, um, and you know, see his family before he has to arrest him. You know, which is basically what he said. Go home, take care of your own affairs before I'll give you a head start before I actually officially have to arrest you. Basically, he's that was basically what he was being told by his dude in command, Donald Sutherland's character.
Right. That's why I thought all along he was the one that was involved, and
Yeah,
then at the end you find out it's not him.
yeah.
Well, I didn't think he might be involved, but I did think he was a stereotypical dismissive asshole.
Well, ultimately, the reason why he even chased after anything is that his journal that was sitting at home had been taken by his nephew's best friend, who was just sitting there mocking him while he was outside, and he ran off. He chased him, and then he touched a man who, in turn, went and grabbed a gun that he had inside of a car, and he pulled it. And even though the gun only had blanks, because he didn't put the gun down right away, that is why Denzel shot him and shot him dead. And then, of course, the entity went out from him to another passerby, and he found out that dude was a teacher and had a wife and everything from his lieutenant dude. So
and that's why he was being investigated, because the the next entity was saying she was a witness, and she said that Hobbs shot him first, and that's why he was being investigated.
Yep. So, but we know the ending, and I think we've gotten to that point where we can maybe talk about production. What did we think about the production involved in this film? Did we think that it was the locations were pretty good? Good? Do we think it was well filmed?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I was surprised that since it's a supernatural story about demons and stuff, that it didn't really need too much CGI aside from maybe those scenes when you see there is this distorted image telling you that. You're being shown things from Azazel's point of view. That was some small CGI involved, but aside from that, there didn't seem to be much.
I think it was more or less a camera, a fuzzy a camera angle. I'm not sure if it was CGI. I think that they've used it in certain. It was almost like the POV was an angle like as if the person was drunk. Yeah, so it was wavy, whatever it was, and you could tell when you were seeing things from Azazel's point of view, and when it was the viewpoint of the person. So, that was a unique effect, I think, for what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, some people, use infrared or infragreen or things of that nature to show that kind of thing, or in black and white or something of that nature. But just to have it like just kind of slowed down, like it was like an SLP instead of LP.
Yeah.
But alrighty. What about the music? Did the music pretty much go? I know we kind of talked about it throughout the film, because they use "The Time Is on Your Side," and it was originally written by Jerry Ragavoy or Ragavoy, and it was originally performed by the Rolling Stones. So,
Yeah.
but the soundtrack involved "Sympathy for the Devil," "Superman," which was performed by Robert Waite, "Where It's At," which was performed by Beck, and "Who Is He and What Is He to You," written by Bill Weathers and performed by Michelle Nedegacello. I don't know. But what did y'all think about the soundtrack of the film?
I thought it was good.
It was, yeah.
Some films use music to add certain things to the element, and I thought this used it well, especially since you don't. I haven't heard of something like this done again since. I know that there are certain movies that use certain sounds, but using the effect of someone singing "Time Is on Your side," on my side, to know that person is the entity. That I think that's kind of original,
Yeah, kind of.
Earlier, I think if you
So
tell somebody that hey, this film is really cool, and you say that they do that in the film, I think people relate to this film, because if you say that it does that, the time on your side, that people are singing it, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, that was that film." I think it's a way to make people know this film by
I
that
know
song.
I know this is kind of corny, but I gotta say it anyways. You could almost say that you were Rolling Stoned all the way through. But in any case, so favorite scenes, everyone. What is your favorite scene, Boris? If you could take from this film one.
Well, I know it's a kind of unoriginal to a not very original choice, but it would probably be the final plot twist when we find out that the narrator throughout the whole story was actually Azazel and not Hobbs. That was what really left me like, holy shit.
Yeah, that would definitely bring something about. What about you, Tammy? What scene would you take from this film and remember, like from here on forward from this movie?
Well, actually, too, I like the ending, of course, because that is quite a twist. But
Mm-hmm.
I like the one where she's being followed, after she gets away from that man and they're chasing him. And it's
Oh,
just
yeah, that
touch,
was
touch,
good.
and touch, and touch, and touch. And she's running, and all these people, just go right down the line after her. They're just touching. That's, you, to me, they got to remember that, because there's happening as fast as she's running. Somebody else's,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just really neat how they did it, you know.
He did.
I would have to say that the ending is one of mine. One of mine too. But I like the point, the moment when he actually is talking to him for the first time, talking to Azazel, and basically being told, "Beware my wrath." I think that part was really cool. That whole scenario leading up to it with James Gandolfini um, singing "Time Is on Your Side," and it just floats from one person to the next. And any time that the entity actually the whole thing where you saw it being passed from person to person in the detective in the police station. It was a build up to something happening, and I liked that build up.
And the look on Hobbs' face when he's figuring it out is just priceless because he's watching this and he's going, you can see him figuring something out
Also,
as this
the
is happening.
I think that little scene that Denzel has with the original serial killer Reese, that part is kind of freaky too. You know, I like that
Kind of,
part.
yeah.
I like that part too because that's where you get the coded like thing like that starts the whole thing. You know, basically he's like, well, why is there a space between these two names? You know.
Yeah, it was a pretty good way to get a mystery going.
Well, yeah, it kept it on your toes because no matter who had the entity, it kept leaving clues, you know, and it made it kind of a who done it kind of a thing, where okay, if this person really killed them, why and how? If these were words that were originally said by this dead guy, you know, so um,
Yeah.
I like that it wasn't actually like a horror movie. It was more like a suspense and a mystery, and it you know like you say, it kept you guessing because you know who we who I don't know who everybody thought was the bad guy at the end, but to me, I did not think it was John Goodman's character. You know,
Yeah.
as Boris Karloff once said, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is a thriller." But in any case, um, is there anything else that anyone else wanted to add? I know I did want to say one or two more things as far as trivia goes. Uh,
Well, there was one thing I wanted to say, not actually not related to the movie, but it was something I wanted to say to our audience. But you first, you have something more relevant to say.
Yeah, give me just 1 second. So, during pre-production, Elias Koteas traveled to Ohio to meet a man who could speak Syrian Aramaic to help him with his dialogue. The man was happy to help, but wouldn't utter the curse words in the speech for religious reasons. Therefore, the producers had to find another Syrian Aramaic speaker who was willing to speak the profane lines for Koteas.
Wow.
Here's one of the goofs. Um, when Hobbs returns to the wood cabin towards the end of the film, he enters and stands looking around for a moment with a window to his left. A definite human shadow can be seen walking past the window, despite Hobbs being alone, supposedly. Uh,
Interesting. I
Here are some continuity things. After shooting a man on the street, Hobbs walks over to the man lying in the street, The dead man is shown with a gun still in his hand, but when Hobbs reaches only the man's feet, nowhere near his hand, Hobbs is seen kicking the gun away. Hobbs and his nephew Sam arrive at Greta's house at night while it's snowing out. As they enter the house, there is no snow on them. When, after about 78 minutes, Hobbs enters Stanton's office, Stanton is hanging up the phone. In the next cut, when Hobbs sits down, Stanton is hanging up the phone once again. And another continuity. Amount of snow on Hobbs' hair and jacket when he is lying on ground at the end. But here's a miscellaneous one. When Hobbs shoots the school teacher post-shooting, his gun is shown with the slide in the locked back position, indicating that it is empty. Cut to the dead man, then cut back to Hobbs, and the slide is now released, and in its normal ready position. Of course, these are probably posted by people who have nothing better to do. But here is something that's incorrectly regarded as. Here are a couple of things that are incorrectly are regarded as goofs. As Hobbs is driving up to the cabin in the woods, what looks like a cat dashes underneath the house into what appears to be a crawl space, and the type found underneath the house is built on piers. Yet later, Hobbs goes downstairs into what looks like a full basement. Houses on piers do not have basements. The cat runs under the fuel oil tank, not under the house. Azazel supposedly retains the memories of the people he possesses. However, when he confronts Greta, he doesn't recognize her, despite the fact that he had possessed her father when he failed to destroy him. He makes a comment that she looks familiar, but he can't place her.
Now that's an interesting one.
A revealing mistake is when Azazel punches the window of the cab containing Greta Milano. It shatters like regular glass. An automobile window breaks into tiny round pieces. So, other than that, what were you going to say?
Well, as far as the movie goes, I think I have said everything I was going to say, but there was another thing. It's unrelated to the movie, but I wanted to share it with our audience anyway.
Okay.
And that is that a few days ago I published a poetry book on Amazon Kindle. If you like horror movies and stuff like that, you might be interested in my poetry book because it kind of mixes elements of romance, horror, angels, demons, and everything in between. Here is what I'm sorry, what the
That's okay.
cover looks like.
It's called
Baphometia duality.
Okay.
Dave, could you maybe post the Amazon link in the description of this video in case anyone is interested in reading my poetry?
Definitely can.
Thank you.
After the show, I can definitely do that. But let's go around and I guess tell you a little bit about ourselves. So, Boris, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Oh, well, aside from watching and discussing movies with you, yeah, I'm an aspiring writer. I may have mentioned a few times that I have an unpublished horror novel with elements of satanic horror. Actually, I have a print of it here in case you want to see. This is here is a Croatian print of my novel.
Total
And
evil.
yeah, and it's this long. And I also have an English version which is just as long. And I am writing a sequel to it these days.
Ah,
So
So
yeah,
that's already published.
I'm sorry, Tammy. What did you say?
he
That's
said,
already is that already published? You can buy that.
No, unfortunately, it's not published yet. I still have some grammar mistakes to resolve, and I need to figure out the whole process of publishing. So far, the only thing I have published is my poetry book, which I have shown you the cover art on my phone. And if anyone wants to buy it, you can find it on Amazon. It's called Baphometia Duality. They will post a link in the description, so you'll be able to find it easily in case you're interested. But yeah, my one of my main ambitions as a writer is to get my novel published, and I hope in a way that it will reach a broader audience. I hope more people will get to know about my work.
definitely. I'm
Mm.
looking forward to whatever you publish, man.
Oh, thank
But
you.
why don't you tell a little bit about yourself, Tammy?
Well, I've been just starting to get into doing this because my better half likes this, David. So this is all new to me, but it's been interesting so far. Other than that, like my things that I do is I have a 1972 Grand Prix, which is restored. So I like going to the shows with it and seeing the other cars, and of course having everybody comment on mine is very nice too. Um, I collect I collect somewhat as far as movies go. Um, I'm not into as much as David is with the independents, but I've gotten into some of them. I collect a lot of music stuff. Like Led Zeppelin is my favorite band, so I have lots of stuff that has to do with them.
Okay.
And most I have
I'm a collector too.
I have a big collection. Well, not a
I'm
huge
sorry I
collection
interrupted you.
as far
I'm
as
sorry
movies.
I interrupted you. What were you going to say? Tell me.
As far as movies go, like I have like a whole area that's just Dracula. You know, it's away from my rest
Ooh.
of my movies. It's all Dracula and vampire movies. That's all that's in there. And I have a bunch of books too. I have even old books with vampire tales. So
Oh,
that's my thing.
nice.
Alrighty, and my name is David Straggy. I am one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore, which is a different channel than this is, where we go on and talk about different movies, and I also interview filmmakers and actors and actresses on that particular channel. But here, it, it, our main focal discussions are with Boris. And obviously, as you can see, Tammy has joined us on a couple of episodes. So definitely check out these episodes. I would like to hear down in the comments what you thought of how we discuss the film. If you had something different, please do. It doesn't matter. Honestly, we just enjoy talking about films and sharing what we thought of the films. If it was entirely different in your mind, well, that's why we discuss the films, so that maybe it's a platform that people can say, "Hey, I remember seeing that. I remember watching that. Oh yeah, that part was really awesome." And people like to hear the descriptive ways in which films are interpreted. So, in any case, thank you for listening. Have a great day, evening, and morning wherever you are. And time is on my side.
Nice.